Good evening, you're very welcome to Tuesday's Daily Rundown with me, Fiona Fox. Tonight in the programme we'll have a guest interview with the Women Against State Pension Inequality campaign, and we're going to chat about the big stories of the day, including McDonald's, a big lotto win, unlimited fries and much more. But to get us started, it's time to introduce tonight's guests. It's one of our regular favourite stand-up guests and generous good doer. Stephen Armstrong is here. Hello,
yes.
Stephen.
Hello. Yes, I've been doing good. Dib, dob, and all that. As a former scout, I am aware of good do.
Straight in with the scouts. We were talking about scouts last time you were here. I think we were trying to ascertain what it was they were actually meant to do.
Yes.
So you're bringing that up again this week.
Well, I'm always here to do good turn. Yes.
Well, that's as we say. And accountant and corporate advisor, Mr. Steven Lindsay is here as well. Hello, Stephen.
Good evening. I will obviously be the person that does no good whatsoever.
No good whatsoever. Wow.
We need the foil.
We need balance, don't we?
Correct.
To the couch. But it is a couch full of Stevens this evening, though.
Yes.
Which is quite nice. Sorry, just wabbling my hands in your face there, Stephen. Don't forget, you guys can get involved at home as well. If you're interested, you can tweet us at the Daily Rundown with any comments you may have. Now let's go to our first news story. Sexual harassment and sexual violence in schools is to be investigated by MPs for the first time. Reports that sexualised behaviour has become normal behaviour in schools. Pupils who took part in preliminary research for the Women and Equalities Committee expressed concern over the existence of lad culture within the learning environment, many suggesting that boys have a sense of entitlement to girls and are pressuring them to have sex or face being bullied for being a virgin. I think this is quite shocking to hear, isn't it? But do we think that kids are more sexualised these days? Is this a long time coming, do you guys think? Stephen, you've got children, haven't you?
I have grown-up children now.
Children, are they boys or girls? Or
one of each.
One of each, right? It's a nice kind of balanced fatherly viewpoint. I'm sure you have, like all fathers do.
That's not what they would say, to be honest.
Well, what do you think of this? Is this something? I mean, you say they're grown up. Is this something that you would have been aware of happening at the time when they were in school? Does it seem like a new story to you?
I think the problem is you don't know, because you don't know whether you're finding out what's going on at a school, any school, but even a school that your own kids are going to. You know, you're not necessarily going to know, because kids don't tell their parents, a quarter of what goes on.
I think
why would they?
With this topic, probably it's
and especially when it's something, that's almost by definition seen as something that needs to be kept secret, and especially from the parents. Yeah. So who knows? And I think the more general point there is probably that it's interesting that this research or study has been done. They think there's a problem and it's worth investigating, because it's actually difficult for anyone that's not been involved in the study to particularly argue that that's a good or a bad thing, because we're not in the schools, we don't know.
You feel like we're not on the ground, you don't feel like you can get a proper look at it. Yeah. The idea, it's the first time that they've done an investigation like this, other Stephen. What do you think is there's obviously an issue there that wasn't there before, or that they are now aware of. What do you think is to blame for these statistics that have necessitated a report?
Well, I think. See, I mean, as a non-breeder, as a non-producer of life, as a non-owner of a small person,
but a do-gooder. I can only speak of when I was a kid, and there was a great deal of misinformation going about when I was a child. So I do agree. And one of the parts of this, the article that I read, was suggesting that we should get some kind of education into the school. But I think the difficult challenge is hitting that balance of, it can't be an authority figure. It can't be a teacher, or, as Stephen was saying, a parent figure, because you don't know whether they would open up fully to a parent figure. But also it needs to be a position of some responsibility or knowledge, because a lot of the information that I was getting when I was a child was factually and anatomically incorrect. From kids. I went to a school where sex just didn't happen. It wasn't talked about. out it was a bad thing. It just wasn't. It was something that the naughty Protestant children did.
Did you go to a all-boys school?
No, I went to a Roman Catholic school.
It was mixed?
It was mixed. It was mixed sex. We did, when we went to sixth form college, we had I think it was called personal and sexual education or something. It was like a half an hour class, and it was mostly consisted of watching videos that then the teacher would ask whether we wanted to have a debate about them. But obviously we didn't.
No.
We wanted to have a debate, yes, but we wanted to have that debate at break where we could go, did you see what it just said on that video? We'd have the discussions in the break room amongst ourselves. We'd then go away with this massive amount of ill education, half truths and
no
half education, and go away going, oh, did you hear if you do this, then this, and it wasn't just it. So I think nowadays there is that access to information, but there also is this access to so much information that, children are more sexualized because they have access to the internet.
Does that explain why there would be, just to quote the article there as well, that a young boy would have a sense of entitlement to a young girl in school? Like, where would that attitude come from, do you think?
It might be part of that. Personally, I'd be surprised if that's significantly different today to 20 years ago or 40 years ago, maybe. Maybe it is, you would never know. But if it is different, then it may well be a reflection of access to the internet, easier access to porn. Sex becomes a different thing if from the age of whatever, I don't know what age it would be, but say it's 13, 14, maybe younger, there's access to things that in reality were really just not actually available at all, or readily available certainly. Now, in reality, whatever we think of filters and doing all the things we do, it's there. So does that have an effect? It could easily do. Now, I'm not saying that in some sort of anti-pornography sort of way, but it might have an effect. It's possible. Yeah. But I do think the education point is crucial, that Stephen mentions, because there is all this access to information, much greater access to information now, undoubtedly. But that isn't education, that's information. That is just as you say, it's a mass of stuff.
And it is a mass, isn't it? It's very overwhelming.
And it's what you do with it, and it's actually putting, educating people isn't just throwing lots of info at them, as we know. Yeah. So the educational piece on sex, as regards sex education, is still crucial to this day, and it always amazes me that there's still battles going on with conservative, mainly probably religious people of certain types. You mentioned the Catholic churches in a different context. They might be an example of it. They're actually fighting sex education all the time. There is still that attitude with a lot of people and organisations of, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, we know it's madness, but we're still allowing that sort of mindset to drive things.
I mean, to support the education that I got is while you were speaking, I was reminded of a passage in the Bible, and to kind of change it a bit the passage in the Bible is, if you give a man a fish, he will feed him for life. If you teach him how to fish, he will feed him for life. If you give somebody the ability to procreate, they will procreate. If you teach them the ramifications of the ability to procreate and the ramifications of that, then they will have a better education. So it's not about giving this massive information that's out there. It's about educating people. The idea that making a human life or getting into a situation or being able to, forcing yourself on somebody is it's not easy, but it's a power thing, and it shouldn't be. You should educate people that sex and the sexual relationship is something that it should be valued, but it also should be learned and educated. It's not about just having the access. But certainly, kids when I was at my age still had those. There was children who had those horrible attitudes towards women when I was a child.
You feel like that did exist?
Yeah.
So because that's something that kind of comes up quite a lot with various horror stories, not just in relation to this topic, you know, is it actually happening more, or are we just hearing about it more, or is it just the media? Again, going back to how much access we have to information. The lad culture thing is something that pops up though now and again in different kind of topics and different sort of situations with, you know, everyday sexism, that kind of thing. It's a bit worrying to think that it is starting so young in school. I mean, you kind of mentioned, I think, you know, kids having access to 13, 14. I think we're talking about kids having access to porn 8 and 9.
Oh, of course, yeah. If you don't, if they're not, protected from it.
Does it feel like we're always kind of behind with sex education? Because as you said there, Stephen, it didn't even exist when you were in school, really, to some extent. Now we're at a point where there's sex education in school, but is the sex education that we should have been having when we didn't have all this kind of media? We really need to be on the button and really, really ahead, don't we, with so much time.
But I think that is the crux of it. It is about education. You're never going to get it right, you know, as in 100% right. You're never going to have a situation where everyone's happy. But you've got, my view is, you've got to err on the side of provide information, educate people, and they then behave, generally speaking, better than they would have done without it. Not such that everyone then behaves ideally, whatever that would mean, but there will be an improvement. And, you know, we've just got to battle against that sort of conservatism with a small c that results in us always being behind the curve. Maybe a generation behind the curve. And that's, you know, you've got to remember the people making the decisions as regards the education people get are here, and then a generation behind them are the kids they're talking about. You know, so therefore it's easy for them to be a generation behind, and that's a long time in this area.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. We're going to go for our first break of the evening. Don't go anywhere, we have lots more news and a very special interview coming up very soon as well. See you soon.